Hey again, everybody. Welcome back for another installment of Speaking of Sundara, where I talk about my Sundara Dawn of a New Age fantasy RPG setting. And for folks who've been regularly watching, I've been kind of bouncing back and forth talking about the previous releases that I've had and some of the more interesting aspects in the corners of the setting. But I feel like I've reached a milestone recently with releases and all the books that are coming out, so I thought I would talk about the seed of the initial idea for where this whole setting began, and then kind of give a preview for some of the things I'm thinking about doing going forward. So, without further ado, there has been a question lots of folks have asked who have noticed various splats, and they're wondering, why are we getting this setting piecemeal? Why is it coming out one little book at a time, and why not one big tome with an entire world that's been pre planned that we can just kind of grab and just dig into all the way through? And the reason for that is, quite honestly, I didn't initially plan on making an entire setting like I have. And the whole thing comes down to about a year and a half ago. Adrian over at Azukail Games pitched me an idea, as the way our relationship works with me as the creator and he as the publisher, of occasionally he'll give me an assignment or an idea, and occasionally I'll come up with an idea, and then I'll see what he thinks of it, and we'll go forward from there. And this particular assignment was 10 fantasy villages. It was very simple. There's a automatic generator. I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head. I should have written it down. Link in the description below if we put it in there. But the basic idea was you click the button and it gives you a map, and it's sort of a town with, you get a name and you get a general description, a general population. And so I would take those maps and then I would create, a history, put prominent NPCs in there, explain locations of note, and drop a couple of plot hooks for those who wanted to use this as a setting for an adventure but didn't want to do all of the heavy lifting for what was going on. And the sort of natural follow-up for that, because there was another setting on the map generator, was fantasy cities. And folks who know me, which I'm assuming is most people watching the channel, honestly, know that cities are my jam. I love urban environments, and I feel they don't get enough love in fantasy games in general. And so I felt that trying to jam 10 cities into one supplement was not going to do justice to any of them, particularly with the sheer size of these maps and all the various different neighborhoods and all the history that could go into it. So my proposal was instead to do a bunch of independent supplements, each with their own city. And as I started working on Ironfire, which I got really lucky with that random name generation, by the way. There are a lot of bad names that come up in random generators, and that one was just great. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But I was about halfway through Ironfire where I realized I was going to have to start really putting together a setting for all of these to make sense. I still wanted them to be kind of like Lego pieces, so you could use them independently without needing all of the other books. But I also wanted, if anyone grabbed it and wanted to find out more of this world, this setting, I wanted them to be able to do that too. And so I started planning around the time that I finished up Ironfire that all of the others would be connected in some meaningful way, which is why you see a lot of the technology and developments from previous books, like I mentioned in the last video, showing up in future installments. Whether it's the trade relationship between Silkgift and Ironfire, whether it's the slightly contentious relationship between, Horde Reach and Archbliss. There was all of these things that people could use or not use as they chose. And they're a lot of work to put together. I'll tell folks that right off. It's why I'm not cranking them out like I was earlier. I needed a bit of a break. So I did the 5 cities in the initial run. Then I had sort of Gods of Sundara as a palate cleanser, and I wanted to sort of take faith in a fantasy setting and put my own spin on it. And after that, I figured, well, we've done cities and we've done religions, let's move on to species. And so I did the 6 Species of Sundara books that are out now. That's by no means all of the species you have available to you as a player. Still haven't done humans. But I'll get back to that if people want to see more of those. And I had kind of a close of Phase 1 release recently with Towns of Sundara. And it has a lot of the same setup, the same framework as that 10 Fantasy Villages supplement did. But it was specifically for this setting. It sort of built on all of the work I'd done with species, it built on the relationships I'd made between the cities, and it sort of made it clearer to folks that this isn't just a bunch of independent, powerful cities with nothing between them. There's still that thing of large portions of the setting are just small towns, out of the way villages, little hamlets where the majority of the population lives, and this is kind of an insight to what their lives are like. What are the things they have to deal with going forward? And I felt that was a solid close to the first arc where it made it clear like this is a setting that is still in development, that is still growing, and there's a lot of stuff that I have yet to explore with it. And I've sort of got some new ideas coming I wanted to let people know about. I'm not just going back and expanding on cities, I'm not just going back and doing more player species. At the moment, what I want to expand are sort of the organizations that exist within the world, and we got a bit of a taste of that with Sellswords of Sundara, where we got 10 mercenary companies. Because standing armies are really hard to maintain when you have a small population and not a lot of treasure. But some of the proposals going forward, we've had Cults of Sundara, which we'll both take from my 100 Cults to Encounter supplement for folks who grabbed that one. But it'll also take some of what was in the details of Gods of Sundara and sort of mix the two of them together and see what we come up with. In addition to Cults of Sundara, I was thinking about Guilds of Sundara, sort of creating wider-reaching organizations that have the power to cover large swaths of the setting, to act as either paymasters or antagonists for players going forward, and to sort of fill in the cracks for game masters, asking, well, if there's no large power structures as far as traditional nobility or the governing structure of a nation, well, who's running things? Who's helping out in the various aspects that adventurers usually get involved with? And so I thought those were interesting, and I was sort of going forward with a couple of those. And it's not that I won't return to expand the other areas, I just didn't want people who have been picking up the copies thinking this is, second verse same as the first. I'm trying to do new things, different things, and to kind of give everyone new options going forward. And then depending on what people want to see, whether it's comments left on videos like this, whether it's reviews put on the books that people have bought, or just anything like that, of give me your feedback on, depending on what you want to see, depends on where I go as a creator. But that's kind of my behind the scenes story of the setting that wasn't originally intended to be a setting, but now that I'm here, I see no reason to stop the forward progress, which is very fitting with the themes I've been working with so far. But yeah, if you've got feedback, toss it below. If you have a particular older supplement I've done, whether it's cults or superstitions or noble families, anything like that that you want to see more of and you want to see added into Sundara going forward, toss that in the comments too. And until then, I'll see you next time. Happy gaming, everybody.